The content presented in this podcast and YouTube show is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the guidance of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding your health or a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard or seen on this show. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or emergency services immediately. The host, guest, and producers of this show are not responsible for any adverse effects resulting from your use of or reliance on any information presented. Andrea, can you hear us?
Many years ago, I died for 26 seconds. There are so many people in this world that have experienced life events that have led to their soul purpose. Wake Up Your Soul with Andrea will bring you these significant life events that demonstrate how to use those moments for guidance and life purpose. These are our stories. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Wake Up Your Soul with Andrea Lynn. Today's guest is Letitia Frye, and she has raised over $1 billion as America's foremost auctiontainer. Let's welcome Letitia Frye.
Hi. Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you?
Good. I actually wanted to start with how we met because I think that's really just an interesting story and obviously a very divine meeting that we had. And I want to say ironic that we're here today, but not really.
Not really. Exactly. Yeah. Do you want to tell it or do you want me to tell it?
So I'll start it, but you can totally jump in at some point. But what happened was I was at an airport on a girls' trip and we were about to get in line and there was two choices. We have the TSA pre-check or clear, right? And I asked the security guy there what line was faster. And now I can't remember which line it was that I ended up in. I think it was probably clear. And he said, "Oh, for sure, this line is faster, for sure. I was like, well, I was just curious. And so my friends all went in the other line and I'm thinking, let's just see what happens. I mean, we had plenty of spare time. So I just wanted to see what would happen. And so then I went in the clear line. It was definitely not faster. But maybe it was just that day. Like you never know, right? But anyway, I ended up in that line and then I didn't even notice you, I don't think, until we had gone through security. And then I see this woman with a dog and it's clearly a dog that's helping you with some sort of ailment. I wasn't sure what. And so I went over and I just asked you, I said, "Excuse me, can I ask you what your dog is used for?" Right. And then you dove into it. But I felt like it was weird. Like usually, I mean, I've seen a million people with their dogs, but I don't usually just walk up and ask what they're using them for. And
Yeah.
for some reason, I felt the need to ask. And maybe it is partly that I'm going through stuff currently. For people that follow my Instagram, they've seen that I've been going to the Mayo Clinic and trying to figure out things because my heart struggles when I fly and I pass out, even though I have a pacemaker. And so when I saw you with the dog, like my first thought was, I wonder if a dog could help me. Like maybe that would be something that would make flying easier if this dog would alert me when my systems are starting to fail because my blood pressure starts to go, my blood sugar starts to go. But obviously, by the time all that stuff plummets, it's a little too late. So I think that was kind of my thought. I'm not really sure, but I definitely felt this push to go over. And I actually don't just love jumping into talking with strangers. And I just felt like I had to. And so I did. And then you started telling me some of your story, which is beyond fascinating and beyond alignment with what I do. And so then I asked you to be on the show.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny because from my perspective, it's coming through and my son went the other line too. And I was thinking, this is not faster today. But what struck me about you is I remember I went through the dog is trained to wait. And then you said, I can't go through there. I have a pacemaker. And I remember it caused me to pause. I thought, how is this absolutely stunning, completely healthy young person have a pacemaker? And so it gave me a pause for a hot second because I thought, it's funny. We never really know. You can't just look at someone and tell. And that's why when you came over to talk about the dog, I thought, well, I don't just say exactly how the dog is. So come here, Fuss. Let's meet the suspect. Come here.
Yes.
Come on up. Come on. Come on
And
up.
maybe it was that similarity too that I saw you and I thought she looks super healthy. How could she need a dog
Exactly. So
for
a lot of
anything?
people do that. Yeah, a lot of people do that. So this is Fozzie Bear. This is the dog in question, who is actually a fully trained and task oriented service dog from a brain injury that I had. So
Yes.
for those of you in the audience, it's been 10 years. Fozzie's now 9. I went out on Thanksgiving morning in 2014 to take a seemingly harmless jog. And my 2 kids were at home, done. I'm like, I'm just going to go 25 minutes around the block. I'll be right back. And I got hit by a car on a crosswalk, and I was thrown in the air, landing on my head, and I had a traumatic brain injury. I was a level 1 trauma, and really began this journey that would be quite the journey that would move forward through this. But again, when you are first start something, you have no idea what's about to happen. And I thought, yeah, you've got a level 1 trauma. I don't even know TBI. What does that stand for? Traumatic brain injury,
Yes.
post-concussive syndrome. Isn't that football players, or veterans? So I didn't really understand what I was about to go down. And I went back to work too fast. I did everything wrong. And I had my first seizure on stage at the Super Bowl with Joe Buck. And for your listeners that don't know what I do, they call me the Auctiontainer, something that Alice Cooper gave me because although I'm an auctioneer who talks fast and sells things on stages around the country, I only do nonprofits and charity events. That's it. And I do it from a perspective of entertainment, notes and in the crowd and all those things. So thus the name, the Auctiontainer. But I was doing that on a stage for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital at the Super Bowl in January of 2015, just about a month and a half after my accident. And I had a full blown seizure on stage and fell into the audience. And so that was the beginning of this journey of blinding headaches, ridiculous, outburst of temper, seizures, panic attacks, so many things. And so Fozzie entered my life actually a couple of years later at a point that I didn't realize how much the dog could help me. And it is very much what you were just referring to. The dog can tell me if my blood sugar is low. The dog can tell me if a panic attack is coming. He takes both his paws and does this, but he instantly tends to stare at me when we travel. People are like, that dog's just staring at you. And I'm like, well, it's his job.
Yeah.
But he was a huge, huge shift for me in being able to become, if he could tell it's coming, how come I can't tell it's coming?
Mhm.
So he was able to give me, if he could tell, I started to learn certain signals that were going on in me. And I kind of say that he is be here now made visible because he taught me how to be so present in my body that I could then understand that these things were coming on and do something about it. And so now here we are. It's 10 years later. Fozzie is 9. I don't have seizures. I am not on any seizure medication. I panic attacks are panic attacks, but I don't take anything for them anymore. I learned meditation. I learned mantra. I'm on a thyroid pill for low thyroid. That's it. That's all I do. So, at close to 56 years old, I'll take it.
Yeah,
I'll take it.
you're doing pretty good. So I want to ask,
No, the dog is doing pretty good. Dog's doing a great job.
do doctors say that you would have not had seizures if you would have rested longer and taken care of yourself for a longer period of time, or was that inevitable?
I don't think I personally, from my own, I don't think and I've helped a lot of other women that are going through this. Everybody just wants their life back. You just like, oh, come on, especially if you're a type A and you've got things to do and kids to raise. Who has time for this?
She's
And I
not
think,
talking about me right now at all.
well, I'm actually referring
Kidding.
also to a very dear friend of mine that went
Yeah.
through it last year. And hers was a simple slip and fall in the kitchen, but she had a brain bleed. And she just could not get her mind around how she just couldn't jump back into her former life.
Mm.
And in doing that, she too had a host of problems that seriously, if any of us would probably listen, I mean, what are you supposed to do? No screen time, very little lights, rest, very little interactions. Our whole life these days is built around a screen, answering emails, looking at, whatever you have to do. Look at your job. My job, and it's interesting because the type of injury I had, if I was a typical 9 to 5 person that went to work, I probably wouldn't have had seizures. But I'm someone on a stage with white lights flushed into me, elevated up off the ground. And I have oratory. I'm listening to, someone's going, yes, yes, 1,000, but 15 now, 2 now, 25. So you've got the ears going, the eyes going. And I had hit the pavement so hard that I'd atrophied my eyes and they no longer tracked together in real time. So I had the perfect storm for my line of work. So I couldn't tell you. I mean, I can tell you unequivocally, you should pass. And I didn't. Though whether or not that means seizures happen or not, I don't know. But I know that I did it wrong. I do know that I did it wrong. But cue the music, I did it my way. I did. So, which is not a good way. It's not a
Yeah,
good way.
I mean, I'm feeling that. So, for people listening, I think it's been about 3 weeks since I got a concussion. I was ice skating and I was trying to hold up my daughter, and she's 3. So, she started to bobble backwards. So, then I'm twisting my body to kind of lift her essentially. And then as I twisted in that way, my body went out from under me. And this one nurse had asked me if I broke the fall with my butt. And it was like,
Mm.
yes and no, kind of. I kind of didn't, kind of didn't. We have an au pair and she was with us. And she was like, yeah, like sort of, but not really. She's like, you hit your head like really hard. And I remember falling. I don't really remember hitting my butt actually. What I remember is the middle of my back first. And then
Mhm.
I remember my head, but it was like slow motion because I remember thinking, oh my God, here it comes. Like I can't not hit my head right now. And then as soon as I hit it, it was this big loud boom inside of my head, like the movies. And
Mhm.
see things in movies that you can't understand until you actually live through it. It's like, oh, these are really cool special effects or whatever. And they're actually very real.
Yeah, I can't for so long. And even to this day, that high pitched sound when you're watching a military movie where like an explosive device goes off and it's that high pitch because someone was too close to it, or you're watching a football movie and they show someone get hit really hard and then they do that high pitched sound. That high pitched sound is not special effect. That high
Yeah.
pitched sound is actually what you hear. It's real. And so it's deafening. And for me, I never know if it's pronounced tinnitus or tinnitus. I've heard both ways, but
I
that ringing stayed in my ears for months, months and months. So yeah, those movie sound effects and it's so funny that you said, I remember thinking, uh-oh, here it comes. I remember the car coming here and I thought, oh no. Cause as a runner, I've been running since I was like 7. I used to run like 70 miles a week. Everybody knows if you're a biker or a runner, there's a good chance you're going to get hit by a car if you're running on the street for 18 years every day. And so when it happened, I too was like, uh-oh, this is actually happening. And I remember thinking, just let go because this is real.
I
Yeah.
know. I remember the first thing too after I hit was like I laid there for a minute just to kind of because I was dizzy at first. So it was like trying to get back with it. And then I remember going back and just like touching my head because I'm thinking, oh my God, there's got to be blood. Like that was bad.
There
Really
was for
bad.
me. Yeah. There was
Yeah.
for me. You didn't crack your head open, huh?
I didn't,
It's amazing.
luckily.
It's
And
amazing.
then I started to feel wet from laying on the ice. And so I'm like, okay, I gotta get up. I gotta get up. And then I got up and then my 3-year-old's like, "Me, my knee. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Mommy
hurting.
duty. Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
I'm
Mommy
like, oh my
duty and
God.
mommy's hurt. Yeah, I
Yeah.
get it. I
I'm like,
get
we
it.
just gotta get off the ice, honey. Mommy's just gotta get off the ice. And then I couldn't decide what to do. I'm like, do I really need to go to the ER?
See, I think there's a big conversation in this in case people are listening. Absolutely, you need to go to the ER. I did mention to you offline about the book Thrive from Ariane Huffington.
Yeah.
And, that's someone, she didn't even want to write that book. That's someone that just hit her head on a desk.
Yeah.
So I think one of the biggest things that people should take away from what we're talking about, post-concussive syndrome, yes, a traumatic brain injury is a whole nother level, but we put a lot of attention onto sports with concussion and post-concussive, but there are so many times your mom, you're ice skating with a child. In Huffington's case, she just bent down to pick something up and hit the side of a desk. My girlfriend Juliana that slipped and fell in her kitchen. I think the problem is that a lot of times we don't go to the ER, we don't get that scan, and that's a serious thing that we need to actually start thinking about. Is that if you had and the headaches are there, the ringing in your ears or hair, you really should get checked out.
Yeah.
It's really, if anything, it's better to have nothing show up than to have done nothing and everything shows up.
Right.
For sure.
I
No matter how
honest
small.
I
Yeah.
honestly probably would not have gone, but I'm a
Mhm.
mom. And then when you're a mom, you feel like I can't chance anything. I have to always
Mhm.
err on the side of caution
Yeah.
and fully look into things and make sure
Yeah.
I'm okay. And then also I was scheduled to fly a few days later. And so I thought I better just know what's going on here.
Yeah. And in your case too, the brain and the heart work together. They work together. So by all means, but I think that especially for women, I think that we have a lot of discussion around men around post-concussive syndrome. And that may be just because of sports, football, whatever that is. But I think that more women go through this than probably realize it and just don't really talk about it or do anything about it. And one of the things that you and I have discussed in the past that was hard for me is that I really didn't have any women to turn to as far as what to expect. So I had a lot of male clients in both had either served our country and had gone through this or were professional athletes and gone through it. And for them, what was hard is that when they hit like the emotional crying, because you'll cry for no reason. As a woman, we do that all the time. So for me, that wasn't weird, but the level of aggression I felt was very unnerving for me. And for men, particularly professional athletes and military service men and women, aggression is part of what they do. So the aggression wasn't weird for them, but for me, it really was. And I think that's something that as women go through this, it's definitely something to talk to others about, talk to your doctor about, because the hard part is, and that's what you meant about my dog, you look fine. And because you look fine, you're like, well, I must be fine, but you're not.
Yeah.
You're not.
Yeah. I felt the aggression too shortly after, but I also had a hysterectomy last year. So then it was kind of
yeah.
like, yeah. So then it's that question of, and I've been trying to balance out my hormones. So then, I mean, I didn't have I still have my ovaries. So I have some hormones, but the doctor said the body is still trying to figure out what to do exactly. And so the hormones are a little like this anyway, but it definitely didn't feel like the norm for me. And it felt like just coming out of nowhere. And like I was telling you before we started filming, it really has felt like an air hockey table is the best way I can describe it. I'm just sitting here normally and I'll be doing something. And then all of a sudden it just feels like something is just pinging back and forth in my head. And I can't remember what am I doing right now, like trying to think, focus. And I'm just like so lost in just getting grounded and centered again.
And that's how a lot of young moms feel, period.
It's
I mean,
true.
that's how. So I think, again, like it comes down to the fact how many women have actually probably had a concussion and didn't even know, probably had post-concussive syndrome and didn't do anything about it. And they've suffered through it and they don't have to. Years after my work, I started working with the Brain Injury Alliance, and I didn't know there are online support groups that are free. When my last girlfriend went through that, I was able to hook her up with that. There's a women's night. So there are definitely resources out there, but I just don't think this conversation happens enough for women to understand that maybe this is a little more than me feeling hormonal or overwhelmed. I slipped and fell in the kitchen. I hit my head on the crib. I was getting out of the car, bent down to get my keys. I hit the door, whatever that is. And it's probably worth a little bit of talking about how to go a little further in being your best advocate towards understanding that might be a little more than just mommy overwhelmed.
Do you know, I don't even know how to formulate this question or ask it because I'm not a doctor, but what amount of impact does it take to rattle the brain? Does that make sense? Because when you have a concussion, it's because your brain has had a little shake.
I think that's the $1,000,000 question. And I think Ariana Huffington was a great example of that, hitting your head on a desk. Sometimes I'm not a doctor and I'm not a medical professional. So in no way can I answer the amount of force, but I can tell you sometimes it's not the force, it's where it's hit. So like, I don't know, how you are, but there's certain parts of the back of my head that are softer than others, And so in my case, it hit back here, which is the cerebellum. Now, granted, I went 10 feet in the air, came through a windshield and, there was in my case, you're going to the hospital, you're a level 1 trauma. But in the case of someone else, having known, what has happened in people's kitchens or showers, people slip and fall in the shower all the time. I don't know if it's necessarily how hard you hit or possibly where you hit it. That could be the difference.
Yeah. And I don't remember why we were talking about it, but I was talking about it with somebody the other day about being knocked out. And I've actually been knocked out several times in my life. I don't know if my brain is a little more sensitive because it's been through this too many times, but even as a small child, I can't tell you how old I was, but I was pretty little. I fell down. I think I was under the age of 3, fell down a flight of stairs, landed on tile, and my mom said I was out. Fell out of a car one time, and she said I was knocked out, which that's not a far fall.
But sometimes all of these are building up. So that's one thing. You like, and now that you've had this fall, now you really have to know that this is like, for me, I loved to skateboard and would actually go to the skate park and I would not wear a helmet. There's no way I'm skateboarding again. I still love to ski, but I would never do it without a helmet. Like, it made me wake up that now that next concussion would be something very severe. So sometimes it's just building up. But again, I think it's a conversation worth having, which I'm glad we are, that
Yeah.
some people just think, oh, I hit my head. I hit my head, or I
Yeah.
fell down. It's not the end of the world. And I think when you get the blinding headaches and you notice the mood changes and your spouse or your children notice the mood changes and you have the scatterbrain and you feel like you're not sure who you're looking at in the mirror, that these are things worth discussing with a medical professional and possibly just looking to get into some sort of group with other women that are going through it to talk you through it and find out what you can learn about how to address that. And in this very, very, phone screen, computer screen, everything screen, it's really hard to allow the brain the time that needs to heal from that
It
because
is.
we have it on task 24 hours a day,
I
pretty
know.
much.
And everything is on that phone, that whole life. So
Yeah.
I also think I got a concussion years ago. I was snowboarding and it was kind of similar. The noise was not near as loud as on the ice when I hit my head, but definitely hit my head pretty hard. And then
Hmm.
it wasn't until days later, looking back, I was like, I didn't feel right the last few days.
Hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then it's like, then you start to kind of clue in that, okay, maybe that was a concussion.
Hmm.
But at the time, didn't really recognize it, and I hit my
Yeah.
head. I feel like everybody falls when they're snowboarding or skiing, but I'm like you, I would definitely be wearing a helmet from here on out with those
Oh,
kind of
yeah. No way.
yeah.
I wouldn't
We
ride a bike without it. Like, yeah,
yeah,
no.
we left with my kids wanting to take ice skating lessons, and I'm like, "Yeah, okay, maybe let's talk about this later," 'cause I don't want things that have happened to me to instill so much fear in me that I hold my kids back from
No,
things.
no, not at all. And again, I see a lot of kids that are skating with helmets on, Why do hockey players wear helmets?
Yeah,
It's a very real thing. So there's lots of ways to participate in that without worrying about it. But I do think even casual bumps of the head sometimes can go unlooked and shouldn't be.
yeah.
Shouldn't be.
Yeah, no, it causes more problems than you can imagine even when there's no blood and I didn't have a brain bleed either, but like you were saying that part of looking in the mirror, I remember I think it was in the next day or a couple days later, but I was looking in the mirror and I like it's awful. Like I hate that I even felt this way, but I was so sad, maybe. I don't know. I
Hmm.
just could not smile. And I remember looking in the mirror, just like pulling on my face, like,
Hmm.
anything there?
Yeah.
Anything there? Like
Yeah. And it's almost like
nothing.
you're looking at a stranger, it's
Yeah.
like
It's like,
some sort of disconnect in there. Yeah. It's definitely, I describe it as going down the rabbit hole. And whenever I notice, like that particular friend a year ago, just I'm not on social media very much again, because that's something over the years I realized I don't need to be. I spend a lot of time just scrolling through watching cats and dog videos.
yeah.
I could be looking at trying to do something outside. So I don't go on that often, but I did notice a friend that had said that they slipped and fell in their kitchen and had been in the ER. Whenever I see something like that, I do try to reach out and just say, hey, if things get weird in the next few days or a week, feel free to reach out. And ironically, someone did that for me. When I went through that, they insisted we sit down. It was a male client of mine who had slipped and fall in an area like an outdoor college, like if you're like downtown Austin or something like that, it's like one of
Okay.
the walking cobblestone streets and had
Okay.
just fallen backward and hit the cement of the sidewalk, and had a very severe brain and traumatic brain injury and kept insisting we sit down. I'm like, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And he's like, no, things are going to get weird. And I always remember what he said to me. It was Christmas time because I got hit on Thanksgiving Day. He said, all of a sudden you're going to hear the lights in a store, like a sporting store or somewhere you're shopping. You're going to hear the sound
The
that
buzz.
those long tube lights make, and you're going to freak out. I'm like, what is he talking about? And sure enough, I went shopping and all of a sudden I was there. I'm like, oh, it was deafening. I mean, deafening. And I literally left all the gifts in the thing and ran to the car and started crying and thought, what is wrong with me? And that was, that's part of it. So I think that people that come before you, when they say, hey, just so you know, this is going to happen, it's normal, but you don't know until you know. And then you're
Yeah.
like, please help. Who do I talk to? Yeah.
But it's really nice to have the expectations already laid before you
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
had you not told me these things, I almost would think like, what's wrong with me? Am I just
What's
like,
wrong with me?
did it
Mhm.
screw me up and I'm just going crazy and now I'm forever this messed up person? And I have hope now that I'm gonna
Yeah.
be
You-
normal
you-
again or normal-ish
Yeah. It just
again.
takes time. It just
Yeah.
takes time. It takes
Yeah.
time. Yeah. I think one of the hardest things too, and we've discussed this, is that you'll have good days and bad days. And on the good days, suddenly you're like, oh, I feel great. So you just go rolling back into what you wanted to do. And then that just sets it off. But again, I think, ironically, having you go through this and having the voice that you have and the presence you have with other people being able to share this, I wouldn't be surprised if you had a lot of other people reach out when this show actually airs to say, hey, I've fallen, I slipped in the kitchen, this, that, whatever. I didn't realize it was more than it was. And so, in some ways, unfortunately, you going through this will allow this conversation to happen with more women in particular to say that it's worth knowing that you're going to be okay, but you do have to take it seriously and you
Yeah.
do have to understand that there are other people that can help you through it. For
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. Can you tell us now about your first book that you wrote?
Yeah. So I have one published book out that came out in July of 2020, a horrible time in the middle of a pandemic to come out with a book. I have a book called No Reserve. I am an auctioneer, so I use auction terminology. So, no reserve, take ownership, and live a limitless life. It is a very tangible, readable. I didn't want something that you needed a Harvard degree to
Right.
put your mind around. And I always tell people if I'm sitting on a plane and I look across and I see someone reading it, that's not a win. If I am at a light and someone that's homeless has it in their cart, that's a win. I wanted a book that could help everyone, wherever you were, to understand that you could have a set of tools to handle life as it's coming at you in order to mitigate the damages from life's adversities. So, in the case of my book, I walk you through a divorce that was so painful that I did not take any money from. So, I was extremely poor. In 2008, with the housing market crash, good time to leave married with nothing, and two little kids. I had 5 jobs and made $21,067. So I had choices to make, like, do we eat or do I have gas for work? So that experience was one of the adversities. Then I started my own company. And in addition to the heartbreak, I loved my husband dearly. And then I got hit by the car. I had the brain injury. And then my same children's father, my former husband, then took his life. And then after that, I blended families again and was engaged. And then what was supposed to be my stepchild took his life. And a
Yeah.
series of things that I take you through in that book to teach you, because so many people said, you keep getting knocked down. How do you get back up? And I
Right.
didn't really realize there were a set of tools I was using. So, No Reserve is a book that essentially will give you a set of tools to help you when you're going through, or even, I like to think, don't wait till there's a fire to find the water. I think, like, if you read a book like what I wrote, you'll say, like, okay, these are good practices that you should just have in your life. Because I told a lot of people, once you're in the fire and you're going through it, you're not going to be like, gee, I wonder if I should buy a journal. I wonder if I should go outside, or I wonder what my SOS, my sources of strength are. So I
Yeah.
wrote a book that would really help you just have a great set of tools in
Mhm.
order to handle life as it's coming at you.
Mhm.
And it's been a good experience. And I do still use those tools every day. I have a second book that is now called Bittersweet, as in an auction bitter. Again, I always use those auction terminologies. Why not? Bittersweet is take ownership of your mental health and become a limitless being. Because for me, in the first book and that whole first run of adversities I went through, I realized I gave the reader a set of tools to handle life coming at them. But if doing that, I basically gave you a knife to a gunfight. I didn't realize till I went through a whole series of another set of adversities that the life coming at me wasn't nearly as challenging as the life coming from me. My
Mhm.
mental health, the state that I was in inside while going through those things was a far greater challenge to overcome than learning a set of tools to balance life coming at me. So the second book really, I think, in conjunction, and I say that in the beginning of the book, I stand by my first book. I really do. But in the second one, even if you didn't read that one, I think that the pandemic, which is part of the book, brought the mental health conversation to the forefront. But one of the biggest things now that we're talking about is, what do you do about it?
Mhm.
So I really felt that I wanted to write something that gave you a set of tools to help understand, what did I do about it? And
Mhm.
in the second book, yep, we all went through a pandemic. And for me, that was in the midst of that relationship post the child's suicide. That relationship exploded. I lost my house, had to reinvent my career. I had two children, one of which was a class of 2020 in high school, figuring out how to, I'm a single mom. Was when their dad passed, they did not receive a dime of anything. So me taking care of everything. Now you lose your career. How am I going to educate them? What are you going to go through? And then getting them both on their feet. And then I got breast cancer. And then you're going through breast cancer. And so I took all these next set of adversities and realized I could still use those tools I taught you in the first book, but it didn't handle the storm inside of me. And
Mhm.
I think that that's what if there are several gifts from the pandemic for all of us, but I think the storm inside of us got really loud while we were forced to just stay still. And so this book, I think I'm more proud of and most proud of as trying to give people a chance to understand. And as someone that in the book I explained that went through all these other adversities, I was on an anxiety pill. I used to be on something to help me sleep. all the set of tools I learned in the second book, I don't take anything. And I sleep 8 to 10 hours a night. When anxiety comes, I know how to address it. Yes, the dog is a beautiful part of this, but no, not everyone needs to run out and get a service dog. So yeah, so there's a whole set of tools in there, from meditation and mantra and reinventing a lot of the old tools into a new way to help us understand that you'll never be able to stop what's coming at you, but you can actually help what's coming from you, for sure.
So do you think you didn't realize some of that until you wrote the second book, that just dealing with that mental piece? And do you
Mhm.
feel like dealing with the mental pieces kind of flows some of these things that come at you, or do you feel like you're still living the same life? Because I get it. Like, it's
Mm,
just it's one thing after another, right? It's the suicide and the breast cancer and all these
yeah,
things. It
I
was
think if I knew the set of tools that I know now, which I imparted on my kids who are now 21 and 23, and I watched them use these tools at this young age, and I am mind blown at how well they can handle life as it's coming at them. I think that the mental health game, if you will, that each of us is trying to understand in this generation that we're in the most connected, disconnected generation that we
yes.
have, that's only contributing to the state of our mental health. I do think this is the forefront of the conversation of life is always going to be life. It's meant to be life. But I think that we as a people could handle it so much better and probably not have a lot of the results like suicide or a lot of marriages that fell apart or different things that we're going through, that I think if we had started it at square one, which is us inside, that a
Yeah.
lot of those results from life wouldn't have to be the case. Life's going to come at you, but how you handle it could be changed. It can be changed.
And I almost think that when something comes at you, the way you handle it is going to decide what else comes at you.
Mhm. Very much so. And
Yeah.
whether or not you're going to learn that lesson, or are you going to just roll that into another lesson that's coming at you. In the long run, and I know it's so crazy. I remember years and years and years ago when my divorce still happened, and I was really probably at the first adversity or road bump of my life. Someone gave me the book by Elizabeth Lesser called Broken Open. And I highly recommend it. It's beautiful. And it talks about cursed blessings, that when life comes at you and it breaks you, some people break, crumble, it destroys them, and there is no judgment in that. Other people somehow are broken open, and they're broken open into the world. And I think you're a very good example of that with all of the different things that you've gone through. You choose to show up in this manner, helping other people and allowing that to break you open into what's possibly next. Some people, like my former husband, I love him. We lose people. My former, what should have been my integrated plus one child. Some people, the weight of life is too much. But I think that if we were to start to implement a little bit more of this conversation about our internal world, that we probably wouldn't lose as many as we do, and we'd have more broken open instead
Mhm.
of just broken.
And I really do believe for those of us that do break open, we are not meant to keep that to ourselves. We are meant to share our
Hmm.
story, share how we
Hmm.
did it. And exactly like you're saying, this is why I do what I do. I went
Hmm.
through a lot of stuff.
Yeah, you have.
And
And you're very young. You're
yeah,
very young.
and I don't feel like it was for nothing. I don't feel like it was just cuz it was just happening or it was just for me. Like it's too much for it to have been just for one person and just for me. I
Hmm.
really do believe that it was meant to be what pushed me into this platform and going out into the world and helping people. But it was interesting when you brought up the social media thing, because I actually did just see something on social media.
Hmm.
I think it was a doctor, it was somebody though was talking about the research showing the heightened levels that we have of suicide and mental health and all that, and how it's very, very clearly attributed to social media use. And it's frightening. I have kids. It's
Yeah,
frightening.
it's a tool. It's a tool, and it's meant to be a tool. And I'm older than you. I'm almost 56 now. So, back in the day, we had birth announcements, death announcements. We've moved cards that you got in the mail. All of
Mhm.
that is done on social media, advertisement, products, shopping. I have to be honest with you, half the things I buy is something I saw on Instagram, and so but Instagram didn't start out that way. So it's a tool by all means. But the problem is, and this is why I stopped what I was doing, is that I would roll out of bed. Oh, okay. Well, who's texted me? What is my work emails? Let's check Instagram. Let's check Facebook or whatever else, or TikTok. And that was part of my day. And so that's a lot of time. I spent a lot of time on airplanes. Oh, let's scroll through that. I used to read books, write.
Yeah.
Half the writing I did was on a plane. And I realized, wait. What am I infiltrating my brain and mind with? But also, how much time am I wasting?
Yeah.
So now what I do is I delete the apps off my phone about 2, 3 times a month. I go back on, make sure. Recently, I found out a friend's sister passed away. And then I'll just text that person. I won't use the platform to say, I'm so sorry you lost your sister, but I will text it. So I'll go on and I'll read through and stuff and see how everybody's doing. And then I deliberately take the app off my phone because it takes emotion for me to put it back on.
Oh, wow.
So if I think like I'm just bored on a plane and I'm like, I can't really download it in the air, I can't really, so it just offers me a pause to go, why are we going on here? Are
Yeah.
we going on here to check in on our friends and see everybody's healthy and well and doing okay?
Mhm.
Or are we going on here to just disconnect?
Right.
And the problem is what we're disconnecting with isn't everybody's truth. You know, one of my favorite things I ever saw is that image, and it says it's an apple in a mirror, and the apple is like beautifully round, but the back half of the apple is eaten and you can't tell. And
Yeah.
that was like what it's like with social media. And there are a lot of good that comes from it. But I think the problem is that we're not sharing our truth. And it's hard to tell when someone's struggling anymore, because, well, their page looks fantastic,
Yes.
and I always remember what the turning point was for me. So my book came out in 2020, which, in my publishing deal, I got airports and whatever, and then it comes out and all the airports, nobody's in them. So it was a tough time to release a book. But one of the things that came in my favor was because no one was in the studio, I got to do my own audiobook. And because of my background in entertainment and whatever, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So I recorded my own audiobook. So if anyone buys that, it's me that's talking to you. But the gentleman whose studio I went in, I just fell in love with this young man. He does a ton of audiobook work and podcasts. And because my career turned into basically live stream auctions around the world that I was doing in studios,
Okay.
I got to see this gentleman from time to time, young man. And then one day in 2021, and I realized this was at a time where I was posting everything and mostly at the same time to try to keep the content of the way we were fundraising out fresh into the world. But I was posting like from my morning to my night, everything I was doing. And I bumped into him and he said, oh, I never call you or check in on you anymore because I feel like I have a front seat for your life.
Yeah.
And I was like, it hit me. I went, a front seat for my life. He goes, yeah, I watch you at the grocery store. I watch you over here. You went over there. And I realized, wow, I have actually allowed myself to no longer be checked in on as being okay by friends because they think they know what's going on in my life. That's not their fault. That's mine.
Yeah.
And so that's when I realized this is a tool. And just like that quote, a wise man rules the stars and a fool is ruled by them. It's a tool meant for you to enhance and utilize and connect with the world. It's not meant to be an addiction that makes you tuned out from the world, that so no one even checks in on you anymore because they
Yeah.
think they know you. That's sad.
That's a really good point, though. I think so many people judge how somebody's doing by their social media account. It's like, well, I just saw you were here, there, everywhere. Like, I thought everything was good. I had no idea you were going through all that. And it's like, well, of course you didn't. I mean, I tend to air my dirty laundry because I am not that person that wants to pretend on social media.
Well, that's how I am today. If
Yeah.
I put something out, it's either because I encountered or met somebody who really should have the post, a young designer, a young man, whatever, like the youngest designer in the world is like 7.5. I did an event with him recently. How could you not post that? The man,
Yeah.
this young boy already has his first, runway show and all the rest of it. So things like that. But I think that for me, when the year ends, I like to go back through and see. I used to have literally, 12 posts in a day. Last year, I noticed I had 12 posts, which meant once a month, I went on and I post. And then I asked myself, is that content benefiting me or the world? And it was benefiting the world. And that's when I realized this is a better tool. It's better for me to check in on people, not waste time. And then if something's going on in their life, don't make the comment on the social media. Pick up my phone and reach out and say, do you need to have a cup of coffee? Is there something I can do to help? And I think that's what I mean by a tool. It is the way that you can see somebody's moved, somebody's changed jobs, somebody has an anniversary like LinkedIn. Hey, so-and-so is celebrating 20 years. But everybody tends to just like, yay, yay, yay. And nobody I love, like in a birthday, and everybody knows it's your birthday. But when someone sends me the text, I'm like, oh, they actually
Yeah.
reached out and said happy birthday. So I just think, again, I would never be someone to say, let's get rid of social media. I just think let's put some parameters around it where you still reach out to your friends and find out on a very real connection, how are you really doing? Are you okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
And that's me.
Yeah.
I don't want to write a memoir. I don't. Maybe when God bless if I live to 80, then that's a memoir. But the reason I pick self-help genres, if you look into my career, everything I do, the reason I don't auction houses and I don't auction cars is because I auction for charity. My full life is dedicated towards helping another human being. So I write self-help books because I want somehow to make sense of what I learned through this pain to help you make sense of what you're doing through your pain. So self-help is going to be my genre. It is. And that's the mental health too. That's my genre.
I want to ask, when you're saying make sense of things, is there something that you would share with the audience that's listening if they're going through something difficult? What can they ask themselves, or how can they begin to figure out that question of how do I make sense of this, whatever this is to them?
You're never going to make sense of it while you're in it. So the biggest conversation to have is I love myself enough to move through this.
Okay.
Okay. So this is a self-love mantra every day. I love me. I know that I'm being broken. I know I'm going through this, but I know inside I'm here. I'm here. So maybe I'm not going to make sense of what's going on now, but I can make sense of me. I'm me despite what I'm going through. And I love me. And I'm going to keep prioritizing me so that when I move through this, I am still here and possibly can receive the gifts of a better version of myself. Because whatever you're going through, okay, it's going to be ripping apart your life. And it's never clear until it's over. Maybe some of those rips had to happen. So I remember I was introduced to a Hindu goddess. I'm not Hindu. A therapist introduced me to Akhiwan Shabati. There's a beautiful statue of her in Philadelphia, and it's the goddess of never not broken. And I actually have a tattoo of it now. And her power is her willingness to be broken over and over, because every time she breaks, she decides what she picks up again, and she comes back more powerful. So I think if you're going through it, it's full. It's no different than when a grain of sand shows up in a mollusk, and the mollusk starts desperately trying to protect itself and it's horrible. And it's on all of the things. And then a pearl is what's left when it's over. When a caterpillar goes into a chrysalis, it has to die. Why? So a butterfly can fly away. So, I can say that not from some lofty, you can do it place. I can say it from a seat of I have done it, and what's in me is in you. That is the unequivocal thing I can tell you. I don't know a lot, but I know that what lies in me lies in you. And so if I'm sitting here and somehow have made of it, I know whoever you are, yes, you can.
I had somebody say that to me one time. They were going through something very difficult and really struggling. And they said, well, the one thing that's giving me hope, like they just felt so lost and had no idea what was happening, how to deal with things or how things would get better. But they said to me, just talking to you and hearing your story and knowing that you got through it, it makes me have hope that somehow, don't know how, but somehow I'm going to get through it. But when you were talking, what I also was hearing, that it's really important to reflect back on the times that you did get through something, because we've all gone through something that we made it through. And maybe it's not as big as what you're going through currently, right? And of course, it's not going to feel that way, right? If it was as big, it probably wouldn't feel that big because you already went through something just as big. So it's like, oh, here we go again. I already walked through that. I have the tools. I'm going to get through it. So when it feels so big, it's different, and it is a little bit bigger. But every time,
I think most people, if you want to know if you're going to make it forward, look behind you.
exactly.
How'd you get here? And that can be something so silly as someone feeling like, wow, this month I'm really financially strapped. Really? Well, how were you last year at this time? You're still here.
Yeah.
So I think the point again is not losing sight of you. Who is in here having this experience? You are not the experience itself. There's you. You are here. So learning to understand that you are the value, not the experience. And the other thing I think is so interesting to me, and I'm part of it. When we start thinking, oh, I really have this, like when we talk a lot about manifestation, we talk about goals and dreams, and a lot of people will throw it out there. I want blank. And the first thing that happens is their life falls apart. And they don't seem to understand. Sometimes in order to have blank, you have to lose all of this.
Right.
So I could never handle half of the things that are now presented to me as gifts if I hadn't gone through all of that. And even it's funny all the time. My dog Fozzie Bear and I are on a plane like 5 days a week because my job requires that I travel to these auctions all over the country. I did 108 nonprofit charity auctions last year, and a good 60% are out of state. And again, I'm not physically ailed. So people often ask about the dog. So a lot of conversations come in around about this. But sometimes people go, oh, was it worth it? You got the dog. And if I'm like, well, I don't really recommend going out and getting hit by a car. But at the same time, I didn't realize how much I needed the dog. So, I think all of us are like actors on a stage with half a script. And I think the one commonality we have is being able to help one another while the rest of that script downloads. So I think the commonality of the human experience, even if the experiences are different, the fact that you're a human being having them is the same.
Mhm.
So I think the kinder we can be towards one another, the more we can share that we've gotten through these things together, and the more that we can tell someone it's okay to not be okay with it,
Yeah.
but we need to do something about it. How can we be here so that you can find you, the
Mhm.
presence, the experiencer, separate it from the experience and know that you have to move through it, that you are the one that is worth it. It's you. It's
Right.
you.
Something I like to do too, like, this may not be the best advice, I don't know, but I like to disassociate a little bit in a way of pulling myself out from being so internal with my own thoughts and my own emotions, and just pull myself outside of it and look down on myself objectively
Mm-hmm.
as if I'm anybody and everybody.
Yep.
Because when I'm personalizing things, I get way more emotional.
Well, you just hit a nail on the head. And that's a big exercise in my second book is about personalization. It's happening to me. It's me, 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 me. It's funny because the one thing I'm saying is to remember you, but that's in remembering you, you separate yourself from the experience,
Yeah.
not I'm going through this. It's I am over here and this is happening. So yeah, I don't, it's funny when we talk about dissociation, are we welcoming people into schizophrenia or something? But
Yeah, I don't mean it in
I
that way. Yeah.
no, and I understand it. And one of the actual practices I recommend, I like to go in front of a bathroom mirror and talk it out. Like, let's talk it out. Let's talk, and I think like people will say, if you're one of my favorite authors, Mickey Singer talks about if you're in a parking lot and you watch someone key someone else's car, you're like, wow, that's really unfortunate. But you're not crazy about it. Someone keys your car and now you've lost your mind,
Yeah.
So sometimes I have a little exercise. I'll put a timer on 20 minutes in the mirror and I'm like, okay, let's just remove ourselves from this and let's talk it out. What if it was someone else? What do you really feel if you were just observing this rather than going through
Exactly.
it? And so I do think there's something to that,
Yeah.
and I think one of the things, and I address this in my book, is the lack of access to therapists in the United States, particularly for marginalized communities, and the number of therapists compared to the number of populaces in certain cities and areas, how little it is, even though we're trying to do telemedicine. And so a lot of times I believe like an exercise in the mirror can still like, let's talk about this. Like, tell me how you feel. And almost as if that mirror is the therapist and just get a second to just move away from it so you can go, okay. And then I recommend writing those things down. What did we learn? Okay. I learned that I am not my body. For example, when I went through breast cancer, I had recently had my fourth surgery. I had this huge deformity, really disfigurement, and I work on a stage. So I had to hide it. I hid it from friends. But what I learned is that a lot of times I would talk and go, okay, you have to look in the mirror. There it is. And I would say, I am not my body. Okay. So I am not my body. I am the one looking at this breast, the way it is figured. That's not who I am. And so being able to work through these things, that's not disassociation. That's actually a seed of self-awareness. So what we're talking about is that the difference between disassociation and the seed of self. Okay. So when we say disassociation, you're thinking, let's say someone did key your car and you're like, okay, that's my car I'm watching down there. But again, that's just happening. It's not happening. It's not mine. Okay. It's in the essence of like you. Okay. Yes, it's unfortunate, but are you gonna get through it? Of course you're gonna get through it. So when we talk about taking that moment to take the seat of self, we're not asking you to disassociate as if like, well, I'm not a part of any of this.
Right.
It's recognizing that you are a being that is different than that. You are having an experience, but you're not that experience itself. And so I think that that's a big part. And that's mental health. That's, where are we at? Where we're at inside, how we handle things is the direct visual representation of where we are in there. And so the more disrupted it is, the more disruptive we're going to respond. And sometimes, in my case, I'm a pretty stubborn person. And if I'm going to change, you kind of have to hit me over the head and catch my attention with these things. So in some ways, the way that I've been able to move through that as a gift is because that's the kind of person I am. It's going to take something pretty big to make me go, yeah, maybe we want to change this.
Yeah, I can relate to all that. When you're talking about the body and it's just a body, It reminds me of the time I was at the cardiologist and he's like, it was a new cardiologist. And he's like, why did you put your pacemaker here? Like I can remove it if you want and like hide it under your breast or like down here. And I was like, why? Like I didn't understand. I was like, why? He's like, well, so you don't really see it and you have a pretty big scar up here. I was like, I don't care.
Yeah, I know.
I'm happy to be alive. Like I don't care. But
Yeah.
I had
It's
to know
funny.
that.
Yeah. Literally, it was 4 weeks yesterday since this last surgery, and I've allowed the surgeon to use my pictures wherever you want to show people. First of all, he did a great job, but I told him, look, if this doesn't work, I'm done. I know I'm fine with who that is. But when people see the before and after now, they're like, ooh, and I said, I know, I get it, but I woke up to that every day and I had to love that every day, or I'm not going to get on the stage and I'm not going to do my thing. So I think in your scarred, loving that part about you, and realizing I still have scars. I'm proud of it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I have several tattoos because I will tattoo things to remind myself, don't forget the lesson in here that you learned from this. And sometimes I'll catch myself and I'm like, yeah, that's right. That's why that's tattooed there. You're doing this again, So it's a human experience. It's a human experience. We're all having it in different shades,
Right.
but every single one of us inside there is the experiencer, not the experience itself. And the closer we get to understanding that, the better your mental health will be, and the easier it's going to be to handle what's coming at you based on how calm the things are coming from you.
Mm-hmm. So I, of course, want people to buy your books. But do you have a couple tips that you would share with people from, well, it doesn't have to be from the book, but I'm assuming most of your tips are in the books.
Of course. So my first book, No Reserve, which is on Amazon and Barnes& Noble, it's everywhere. Those things I mentioned earlier, I talked about SOS. SOS is Sources of Strength. People used to think it was save our ship. It's actually save our souls. And it's when people are in a lot of trouble and the ship's going to go down. And so I learned that from an LGBTQ camp. All of the practices I got are actually from volunteering for charity clients. And so SOS is identifying your sources of strength. For me, it's running, it's cooking, it's music, it's my dog, it's my children. That when I'm having that day where we don't want to trust the voice in here because we're really having a bad day, there's a set of things I can go to that I know instantly are going to make the day better. So that's one of the things. I'm a big journal writer. I am a huge proponent, even if you're not a writer, even if you're just kind of taking notes, because when you look back what we talked about, how am I going to make it? I don't know. Let's look at that journal. How'd you come through that? And that journal will help show you the thoughts you had around that when you used to believe you couldn't do that either. Big journal writer. I am a big proponent of meditation, and I had the loudest mind in the world. And literally, when I first started, I don't think I could do 2 minutes. I was like, oh, Lord. Meditation is beautiful practice. I am someone who finds that I don't think there's just one. There are many styles of meditation, but I don't think you necessarily have to go sit in a mountain of Tibet to figure this out. There are some people like guided meditations. There's all kinds of apps, the Calm app. There's music. So meditation has many faces today, and I think it's beautiful. I'm a big proponent of mantra, which is something that you can repeat in your mind that causes your mind to quiet. I talk a lot about that. I'm also the 30-minute therapist in the mirror. I'm all about it. But I highly recommend a timer to make sure we don't go crazy talking to ourselves in a mirror, and have a goal, a set of goals. Like, what am I trying to talk this out? And the way I got that, and this is about the shortage of therapists, is that sometimes my therapist was like, sometimes you ever go to a therapy session and you realize they don't say a lot. They go, "Mhm, mhm." And at the end they go, well, tell me, what did you, as I've heard you speak, what do you think the common themes are? So it's a very simple question they ask at the end. So if you've been through enough therapy, sometimes you can have that session in a mirror and go, all right, what am I trying to figure out today? Today, I'm trying to figure out, why am I feeling so self-conscious in my clothing today? Let's talk that out. So 30-minute timer, where is that coming from? And honestly, if you walk through, that's your breast, that's this and that. Where is it usually coming from for me? I'm not enough. No one will love me. I'm afraid. So those are my common themes. And so when you can figure out your common themes, you can understand this is a lot of how I tick. And that's where I can figure out how to be kindest to myself. So lots more tools, a lot of things coming in the new book, a lot of tools in the old book. But again, I think that sharing a story is one thing, but sharing how did you get through it? And what can I do to help myself through it? And that is my goal, is possibly not only to share that I did it and you can do it, but here's a few things that helped me on the way that you can implement as well.
I love the mirror concept. I think another thing you could add to that, another layer, would be recording it and
Oh, no, absolutely, 100%.
watch it back.
Listen out, because I like to, after that 30-minute session, sometimes I've done in 10, sometimes I've done in 5. But then I like to go to my journal and I'd say, okay, what did I just learn? What did I learn? What's going on here? And again, how I learned that my common themes are I'm not enough, no one will love me, and I'm afraid. And if you really want to break that down another layer, what was the first lie I told to myself when I was little, when my parents divorced and things happened? That's not the true me. That's the lie I started to tell myself around 7 years old. So that's my recurrent theme. And it can show up when I was younger. It showed up in an eating disorder. When I was older, it showed up in 3 fiancés. So, there are different ways that same common lie that I tell myself shows up. So that practice sometimes is to just break it down. What's really going on here? And what's really going on is we're back to the lie I told myself, that I'm not enough. No one's going to love me, and I'm afraid, which is
Yeah. The SOS reminds me of a conversation I had with somebody and asking her, what does she do for joy? What does she do outside of the necessary things of life, right? We have the necessary things. I have the taking care of the kids, getting them to school, and like there's the necessary things that we have to do. We got to make dinner. We got to do those. But outside of that, what are you doing? And sometimes people can't answer that because they don't have anything. And I think it's really,
that's what SOS is all about.
Yeah.
I love to play backgammon. I love to dance alone in the living room. I love to go outside. And what's funny? When kids are little and you go, what do you like to do? They're like, I like to play. What is play? And I think the SOS is a lot of, how do you play? And I think that question you ask them is, I think as adults, we forgot how to play. So what do you do to play? And play is so necessary.
yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great way to end this, because I think that, I think that's very valuable, and that's something people should sit on and think about.
Absolutely.
What do you do for play? So Letitia, thank you so much for coming on and just sharing your story. If people want to reach out to you, if they feel like you would be of benefit to them, how can they reach you?
One of the best things, I have a website, LetitiaFrye.com, and it's me that answers it. As long as anyone's not disrespectful or anything like that, it will be me that answers. As much as I don't go on social media very much, but at Letitia_Frye, it's on Instagram, there's a Facebook, but I'm going to be honest, when people message me, I'm only checking that twice a month. So if you're expecting an immediate answer, that's going to take a little while because I don't go on very often. My website, it's an immediate email that comes straight to my personal email, even though it's blocked off of it, whatever. And I tend to answer it within 2 days.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.